I told you about Grandpa.
Mm-hmm. So he liked to play
the concertina.
The concertina.
Yeah.
Did he like
to sing?
Oh, he liked to sing, did he?
Well, like I said, always Tannenbaum.
Oh, Tannenbaum and
Silent
Heilige
Night.
Nacht.
Those were his two favorites.
Stille Nacht. And you were talking, oh, I know, you were talking about the friend that your grandmother had that liked to go to the movies with her.
Yes, the two of them. I can remember walking from 17th Avenue to 6th Avenue to go to the movie. About once a month. And every Sunday, the three boys always went down there in the morning.
Which three boys?
Hans, Klaus,
and
Charlie. Every Sunday morning they went down to see their parents. And see, we all lived right close together. Hans we lived on 17th Avenue. Hans and his wife, Mary, lived on 16th Avenue, right behind Grandma and Grandpa. And Charlie lived on the corner of 17th Avenue and 5th Street, and Ann and Terry lived just 2 doors down on 5th Street. So we were all right close, but not Aunt Tilly. She was like Grandma Lynch.
Now, Tilly was a bone, wasn't she?
Right.
Now, she had her sister was Clara, wasn't it?
And a very good friend of Ann's, but she never went to see Tilly.
What happened with Tilly? I mean, I met Clara Bone, and she was the nicest person you could ever meet.
Want to say. She was one of Ann's best friends and used to come down there all the time. Would walk now, Mike, she lived with her daughter on 2nd Avenue, right down here. And she would walk from 2nd Avenue to 17th Avenue to spend an afternoon with Ann. And then you have to walk back.
Yeah.
But I don't know, in those days you didn't think anything of walking. See, when I got out of school and started working, I walked from 17th Avenue to 5th Avenue, worked from 8:30 till 5:30, walking.
Yeah, on your feet the whole time.
Yeah, on my feet all the time.
You were at W.T. Grant, right?
Right, and then I walked back home at night. So, you know, walking,
you didn't walk home for lunch?
No, I paper bagged it. But you just expected to walk.
What were people most worried about back in those days?
Well,
I mean, today, you know, you can get excited about crime. There wasn't that much crime then, right?
No.
That was not a big worry for people.
No drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Or any of that kind of stuff.
How did people deal with things like depression, emotional issues, psychological things?
I don't know, Mike. I think that we had such a close-knit family that we always felt very secure.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that was one of the big deals as far as emotions and so forth were concerned. Because, like every Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July, those were the 3 holidays, and the whole families would get together.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember...
Which would have been hard because the house wasn't that big. How did everybody fit?
I can remember going to sleep under a chair on the floor, like on New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
No, Christmas, I'll take that back. We didn't go on Christmas. It was New Year's Eve, 4th of July, because I can remember the men always used to shoot off the fireworks. And they'd build a slot to shoot up the skyrockets. But no, Christmas we spent at home. Because I can remember Ed and Bud and Sis wanted me to believe in Santa Claus, and practically till I was in 8th grade. So every Christmas, it was Dad's job, let's go down and see Grandma and Grandpa. So he and I walked down to see Grandma and Grandpa. And then he'd invite them back to the house to see if we had a Christmas tree. Well, of course, we were only 3 doors down the street, and coming up, you'd see the lights from the Christmas tree in the house. Santa Claus had come while we were down at Grandpa's.
Isn't that amazing?
And they kept practically, well, I don't know, they just wanted me to believe in Santa Claus.
So I guess you're saying ritual was important.
Yeah.
And that gave people a sense of comfort, a sense of security.
Well, I think the whole family did, you know, being so close. Because, gee, we thought nothing of going up and going in and out of Aunt Ann's house. You know, the same as we did at home. And the same way with Grandma and Grandpa's house. We knew we were always welcome. And then, too, with Hans and Mary. Now, we were not, see, 16th Avenue, where Klaus and Hannah lived, was about 3 blocks from where we lived. Well, that was a little far. But otherwise, Grandpa's, well, that, of course, was from the time we were real little. And then it got to be the same with Ann and Terry, because Jack was so close to my age. And whenever they would go to Chicago, they'd take me, so I'd be company for Jack. So there was a close relationship there. And like Hans and Mary, when they discovered that she had cancer, Hans took her to Mayo's immediately. And she had the surgery up there, which was drastic. And they came home, and then she was to go back. And he'd been off work, you know, for quite some time.
What did he do?
He was in line to be head of Clinton Foods.
Oh, yeah.
At that period of time. And, he was a Sharpie. Anyway, now you got me off track.
Well,
anyway, she was to go back for a checkup. So Hans asked Mother and Dad if I could go back with her. And I did. So there again you see the closeness of family. And I can remember when I graduated from high school, she was in the last throes. Oh, it was so sad, because she was so young. And she wanted to know all about the graduation and everything. And I said, well, when I get all dressed up, ready for graduation, I'll come up and show you my dress and what have you. Because we wore long white dresses and big white straw hats and carried a rose. It was pretty. And so anyway, I did. And she was real happy about that. But it wasn't too long after that she died.
A minute ago you mentioned the men, which brings to mind the question, you know, a big issue for the last 30 years has been women's liberation and this female issues. What do you think the view, how do you think women felt about their role in life and the world in those days compared to today?
They just felt that was their spot. And
do you think they felt oppressed? Do you think they felt like they were being dominated?
I don't think so at all, Mike. I think, at least Mother didn't. She just felt that was her spot. And I can remember she and Dad talking, about now should we get this or should we get that or should we get so-and-so.
In other words, they worked as a team.
But yeah.
Each had input into the decision.
Right.
So they didn't feel like the other was
and
controlling
like
or
Dad would come home and he was the one, well, I've told you about him putting me on ice skates when I had runners.
Mm-hmm.
I was that small. And he built a pair of, well, he didn't build the skates, but he built a brace on the skates, on the shoe skates, so that Ed could ice skate. He was determined that Ed was going to be able to do everything that the rest of us did.
Because of his polio.
Yeah. And he'd be the one that took us ice skating, and he was a good ice skater. And we'd go off ice skating and come home, and Mother'd have a great big bowl of soup for us. And that was her part of the party. No, I don't think there was any of that. Not to my knowledge, not that I can ever think of. That one wanted to outdo the other. Well, of course, too, there was no education.
Mm-hmm.
That was...
How many years of school had your mother attended?
I think Mother only went through 7th grade, and I think Dad only went through 8th grade.
And...
now, Ann and them, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And where did they go to school?
I don't know that. Dad would be up someplace off of First Avenue, because that's where they lived,
Mm-hmm.
And he worked in the brickyard, and Mother worked for a, they had what they called seamstresses, and, what was their name?
You mean that's how she learned to... I thought Sarah was a seamstress too, wasn't she, your grandmother?
Not like Mother.
Mm-hmm.
No, Mother was, she was a beautiful seamstress. We didn't have any store-bought clothes.
Mm-hmm.
She made everything, even the boys' suits. And as Sis used to say, she never had a store-bought dress until she was a senior in high school. And she didn't like it when Mother bought it.
Oh, she didn't like it?
No. Well, when Mother finished a dress, it was finished.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't any threads or broken seams or anything in it either. But, no, I can remember her sitting, and it was a treadle machine that she made all those things. What was the name of that place that she worked?
Well, I remember you telling me that your Uncle Ed was a favorite because he would travel to Paris and he'd come back with cloth, right? That was really nice cloth.
Beautiful. But that's what Grandma Lynch was... Well, you have the picture in your book of me in this pink organdy dress and a hair bow. I was the last one in the world that should ever wear a hair bow.
Why is that?
I was a tomboy. Now, on the other hand, you have a picture of Sis with these beautiful curls and the white dress. She loved every bit of it. But it was when Grandma was making me this, and it was beautiful material, when Grandma Lynch was making me this pink organdy dress that she hit me on the head with a thimble.
And you didn't forget that.
I never forgot it. I hated her ever since then. Isn't that awful? But now she was a seamstress, Grandma Lynch, but not Grandma Weinbeck that I can remember. She was good at mending and so forth, but not at making anything.
I know what you sort of dislike about Sarah. Was there anything you liked about your grandmother, Sarah?
well, like I say, she was a beautiful woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a big woman and had gorgeous white hair.
Hmm.
Just beautiful white hair. But she made Mom's life miserable because she blamed Mom for getting Dad out of the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dad hadn't gone to church in years before they were married.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were all born, Mother insisted we be baptized. We were baptized Lutherans. Well, she had a conniption over that. And finally, it was Mother that made the arrangements for us to be baptized Catholics. And she was the one that, boy, every Saturday we went to confession. And every Sunday we got all dressed up and went to church.
Mm-hmm.
Dad didn't. He might go, yeah, which he did when we got older and wanted to go to midnight mass. Then he would go with us
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't want us to be alone. So.
Well, why was he? Did he have a crisis with the church, or what was it that?
No, I don't think so. I don't
He
know.
certainly had pressure within his own family to be a faithful Catholic, right?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Maybe he was rebelling against his mother.
Could be.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Your father had some feelings of depression, didn't he? Didn't he have a couple of crises when he found the pressure of life to be heavy on his shoulders?
If he did, Mike, I never was aware of it.
Didn't he kind of take off at one point?
Not that I know of.
No? I thought he had.
Well, like I say, not that I know of.
Mm-hmm. Now, he was fairly tall, wasn't he?
6 foot.
Mm-hmm.
And he could kick as high as that door.
Hmm.
He was that,
Limber, huh?
Mm-hmm.
How much contact did he have with his brothers and sisters?
Well, Uncle Frank and Aunt Joe wanted to adopt Bud.
Mm-hmm.
See, Ed and Sis were so close together, and then Bud was too.
Mm-hmm.
And they had no children. And when Bud came along, they wanted to adopt him the worst way. That was a no-no. But
well, how did your grandmother Sarah like Josephine?
that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
See, they lived right across the street.
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Frank and Aunt Joe. And of course, his brother Ed.
He was in New York all the time, right?
Dad would always say he's a little odd. And of course, we didn't know what he meant by that.
What about his sisters, your aunts?
Never remember seeing them at all.
Mm-hmm. Did your dad ever talk about growing? Part of the time when he grew up, they lived over in Illinois, didn't they?
I don't know that, Mike. Well, they're both buried in Illinois, aren't they, over in Fulton?
Sarah and Andrew are.
Andrew, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it could
Which
be.
is where Sarah's parents were.
I don't know about that.
And I think at some point, Andrew and Sarah lived over in Illinois.
Well, see,
Andrew died when you were just a couple years old.
I was just 2, I think,
Mm-hmm.
when he died. So I never knew him.
Yeah. Did you have a chance to travel much other than going to Chicago?
That was a big deal.
Who needs to go anywhere else? Huh?
Dear. And every Christmas, this I'll never forget, every Christmas, Mother and Dad, see, Dad always got passes.
Mm-hmm.
And every Christmas, the two of them would take all four of us into Chicago to see the windows.
Oh, Marshall Fields and Carson's?
Mm-hmm. See the windows. And I can remember coming home on the train, and I'd be in Dad's lap, and he'd be saying, Dixon, Sterling, to me, see, I was half asleep, Morrison, Clinton, we're home.
Did he have a deep voice, or was the timbre of his voice, high, low, medium?
I'd say sort of medium.
Mm-hmm. He wasn't a singer?
Oh, no. Oh, no. No way. Dad was more of an athlete.
Mm-hmm. What, a runner or
No, just enjoyed sports, let's say. He didn't really excel in any of them. But,
well, he wasn't in school long enough to be on a team.
Hmm?
He wasn't in school long enough to be on a team.
No. Mm-mm. No. And I can remember, back in those days, the groceryman would come in the morning, and Mother would give them her order. Mm-hmm. We have no telephone. Mother would give them their order. And about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they'd deliver the groceries. And Dad would be coming home right about the time they delivered the groceries. And they had a chocolate marshmallow cookie. It was like a chocolate cookie on the bottom, and then it had marshmallow, and it was all covered in chocolate. And Dad loved them. Well, in those days, the cookies didn't come packaged like they come today. They were taken out of a big square box. Well, they had just delivered the groceries, and Dad reached over for the sack, and he found the one, and he reached in, he took a cookie, and he took a bite, and he took it out. It was covered with red ants. You should have heard him. And never swore. Mother wouldn't allow that in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Neither Dad nor the boys. But boy, was he going to give that Birdie. That was the fellow's name that ran the grocery store. Oh. That was a traumatic experience. And see, they came right from the grocery store because he was the one that opened the sack.
Yeah, right out of the sack. Where was the grocery store located?
You know where the Subway is?
Uh-huh.
On 4th Street. You're going down the Subway here, and Birdie's was over here, right across from, in that block. Well, you know where Smith's were.
Mm-hmm.
Across 11th Avenue and in the next block.
So you had to go under the subway?
No. Here's the Subway. Here's Smith's place.
Mm-hmm.
This is 11th Avenue. And you crossed over to this corner, and there was a street in here. But it didn't look like it does today.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice-looking street, the stores and everything. But how times have changed.
What do you think the worst part of that time was? I would assume the best time is the warm family feelings.
Well, of course, the worst time growing up was during the Depression.
Mm-hmm. Because nobody knew where their next meal was coming from.
That's right. And believe me, you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget Hap. sister was going with Hap, and he knew that Grandpa had money in the bank. So he and Grandpa went down and drew out all the money that he had. And what he did with it, I have no idea. But anyway, he saw to it that Grandpa got his money out of the bank.
And then the bank failed?
Yeah, the bank, of course. They were all.
Which bank?
It seems to me, what was the bank on the corner of 2nd Street and 6th Avenue?
Yeah, that's the bank that's Bob's bank today. Where the building that just burned down?
Yeah.
That's where Bob's bank
well, now,
was before they
I'm not
moved
sure, but it seems to me that's where it was.
Yeah.
And like I say, I'm not sure about that, Mike, but it just seems that that rings a bell.
So Paul got along pretty well with his father-in-law?
No. No, Dad begs us not to marry him.
Really? Why?
Well, he and Hap went out on a couple of benders.
Oh, and so he thought Hap was too wild.
That's right. No, he did not want us to marry him. In any way, shape, or form.
Did he have anybody he did want her to marry?
No, see, she'd gone with him for so many years. I think they went together for 4 or 5 years before they were married. And, no, he didn't want her to marry Hap.
Well, that seems to have worked out okay in the end, huh?
Well, Hap would never have lived as long as he did if it hadn't been for her. You know, after he had his stroke. Yeah. And she gave up her whole life. When he had that stroke, she quit everything. Which I think was wrong. For both of them. For both of them.
Yeah, for him too. Yeah, he became.
That's what I told her. I said, why don't you at least belong to one club? So what you could go out and get some news and bring it back to Hal. But she didn't. She wouldn't.
Well, she's kind of strong-willed, I guess, huh?
She had to be strong to get through what she went through.
You mean with, well, first of all, just living with PB and
right.
Yeah, because he was certainly strong-willed, except not regarding his mother, right? The one person in the world that could intimidate PB was his mother.
They would be over here for dinner. We'd be in the middle of dinner and the phone would ring and it would be Mercy Hospital. Paul, come settle your mother down or she has to get out of here. And he'd leave.
Boom.
Right in the middle of dinner. Well, of course, she was up there at Mercy. For 2 years, I know. And then he and Joe left money to the hospital.
What do you think made May so stormy?
Well, see, at one time they had money. Frank had interests in gold mines someplace west. And they really had money. And then suddenly the bottom dropped out of everything. This was before the Depression. Now what happened, I don't know. But no, she used to have help at the house all the time. She never got meals or anything. They were always served. And
so she was sort of a grande dame.
Right.
But she didn't grow up that way. Her father made cemetery markers, didn't he? McDonald?
I don't know. I don't know.
think so. I think that was his business.
That I don't know. But see, that's just like Tom and Beth Oakes. Their family at one time had money, too.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly the bottom dropped out of that. Now, what happened there, I don't know either. Hap would be able to have told you. And I think that's why both Tom and Beth are sort of hard to, you know, they're living
in the past.
way back when. Mother used to do this, and
mm-hmm.
Dad used to do that. And
good lesson as to how things can change, huh?
well, you know, something Mike Bud was saying that. He said, today, the way the children are raised, well, he was making a comparison with himself. He said how much he appreciated what he had attained. And I said, well, you should, both you and Mike. And he said, yeah. And he said, working for it didn't hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, it's the gratification that you have, that you've accomplished this. And he said, that's what worries me about the children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have not gone through a period like that. They've been brought up with practically everything they have wanted.
Mm-hmm. Well, except his kids, you know, when I talk to Jennifer, for example, she's working over 20 hours a week. And
That's
she's
right.
a manager there. And Michelle is working there too. And they're doing well in school, so they're juggling a lot of balls in the air. I think he can be very pleased with what they've done. And you know.
No, he wasn't being critical of the children.
Mm-hmm.
He was just wondering, you know, how in their own minds, if they would be satisfied, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Well, only time will tell.
Yeah. No, I think they've done a good job with the children.
Mm-hmm. What's the earliest thing you can remember? How far back in your childhood can you remember any person or any event?
Well, I can remember the end of World War I think I was 5 then.
Yeah.
When all of them were coming home. And Grandma and Grandpa were waiting for Hans.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think. He came home and he had a little box like you used to get cheese in. And in it he had mementos from Germany and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it was any place else.
Well, but he only went to France, right? He didn't get to Germany.
Well, then it was from France then that he had it. But
How much German did you hear spoken?
very little.
Mm-hmm.
Because Grandma and Grandpa wanted the children to only speak English.
So they didn't have the feelings that their native culture and language ought to be somehow
No, don't you
preserved.
see why? The war
Mm-hmm.
and everything,
First
and the
World
way
War.
people treated Grandma and Grandpa,
Mm-hmm.
and so on. No, I can understand that.
Hmm. You say the earliest thing you can remember is the end of the First World War. What's the, you know, maybe the next thing after that you could, anything else you can remember going back to that age in life?
Well, I can remember the chimney blowing down on Irving School. Only there was a girl killed over there too.
When the chimney came down?
Mm-hmm. And only I wasn't at school. I was home with scarlet fever, I think it was.
Really?
We were always home with something.
Mm-hmm.
Always had the yellow sign on the front of the house.
Quarantine.
Mm-hmm. And Aunt Ann would sneak in the back door at night. Well, and then I remember when, see, we went to Irving School. I think I was in 3rd grade when we all changed and went to St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember that. And that was a big deal. I don't think I was quite ready for that.
And why? What kind of a big deal was it? In other words,
well, here we are in this little secure corner of the world, don't you see? This was our little world.
You went to Irving School at that time.
Yeah.
And so you had to go
we
to the
had
other
to go
side
up
of the
and
tracks.
go across the tracks, and
Mm-hmm.
from 17th Avenue to 9th Avenue, we walked 4 times a day.
Home for lunch.
Home for lunch. No school programs at that time. And many's the time we'd get to the tracks and there'd be a freight train. If it was stalled, if it was just sitting there, and there was a tank car there, we didn't think anything going up and going right through the tank car.
I would think your mother would be just going crazy.
Do you think she knew about it? No.
Well, just the general idea that you'd have to cross those tracks 4 times a day going to and from school. I mean, I'd be a 10-year-old kid. Kids aren't famous for good judgment.
Well, I don't remember of any of them getting hurt. And there were a lot of them.
How about the river? Did anybody ever...
Oh, that was a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely was a no-no.
But didn't anybody take the idea that you should learn how to swim?
That I can't remember. I know they sent me out to high school, to Juddy, to take swimming lessons. I never got very far. I hated it.
He was coaching then?
Just starting. Well, see, he was older than I am.
Yeah, well, I guess so. He's been gone for a while, too, right?
And, but I was up. I was probably in 8th grade or so when that happened. But, oh no, we were not that, we weren't supposed to go near the river. The only time we were on the river was when, in the summertime, when they'd have picnics. And that was the whole family, too. And Uncle Cluse had a rowboat. And he would take us from where the climax is over to the island. Poor guy, he probably had to make 6 trips.
A lot of rowing, eh?
Because the women brought
all kinds
clothes baskets full of food. We loved that. And then we did get to play in the water, but only up to our knees. If anybody went beyond their knees, they got out of the water and they stayed out of the water.
A big hullabaloo.
That's right. You're done.
And did a lot of kids drown in those days? I mean, were there fears?
Oh yeah, every year there was someone drowned in Mississippi. Well, there has been in later years.
But of course today there's, I would say, far more activity on the river.
Oh yeah,
than ever before, because you have all these people with boats and what have you. Did you have any floods when you were growing up? You weren't that far from the river. And they certainly didn't have a dike.
I can remember one time when the water came up, and I must have been pretty small, because I just have a vague memory of this. You know where the train ran alongside of Aunt Ann's house?
Right.
There was water.
Got that far?
Got that far. Mm-hmm. But not to our house. We didn't have any.
In those days, did they have that scrapyard next to Ann's house, or did that come later? You know, the other side of the tracks from Ann's house.
Yeah, that was there as long as I can remember. And then the coal yard across the street.
Mm-hmm. How about friends and social activities with people outside the family?
I think Dad would have liked it, but not Mother.
She only wanted the family.
She just wanted the family.
Mm-hmm. So your dad was the more outgoing, gregarious sort of person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who were his buddies?
I'm trying to think. There was one in particular. That he worked with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in school with one of his daughters, too. And I can't remember the name now.
Hmm. Tell me the story about the time you and Aunt Celie were scrubbing the floor of your Uncle Frank's.
Wasn't Aunt Celie.
Oh, it wasn't? I thought it was you and Aunt Celie.
No, that was after we were married. You were born then. Because that was when we moved from DeWitt to Clinton.
Uh-huh.
And I had a cleaning woman with me. And we're down on our hands and knees scrubbing this bedroom floor. Nice hardwood floors. And she said something about all these brown spots, and I said, oh, my uncle used to chew backwood. I suppose he'd spit down there or something. He'd stand in the door.
Well, did he agree with you that that's where they came from?
He just laughed. No, when Sis would have Christmas, she would always have Uncle Frank.
Mm-hmm.
Always include him.
When was the first time you went to DeWitt?
You mean to meet Granny and Grandpa?
For any reason.
Well, I can remember Terry had the old Studebaker touring car. It's the only car we'd ever been in. And he was going to take us to DeWitt to the fair. And we got to Keister's Hill, and the touring car started going like this.
Wasn't touring so well.
And Terry said, rock back and forth, and here were we just doing this in the car.
Like a W.C. Fields movie.
Yeah. We didn't make the hill.
Oh, it didn't?
No, it didn't make the hill. We turned around and came back. And I don't know whether it was the next day. It was sometime in that same week that he tried it again, and we made it that time.
Well, maybe you got a better run at it.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh, you know, speaking of the river, we've just had a drowning.
Ooh.
A fly fell in your glass of water.
Oh, one of those darned old box elder bugs. There was a big article in the Davenport Times about them.
Hmm.
But, you know, they were all over. Everybody was going crazy with them. But I didn't think they came around at this time of the year. I thought it had to get warmer.
Apparently it's warm enough for them now.
In the house.
Yeah. Huh. Do you have any bugs down in South Clinton?
Oh, don't you remember my when we were in, was it Centerville that we used to have the spaghetti suppers?
No, that was Fayetteville. Because you had the Italian ladies from Terrytown that would spend all afternoon making the pasta themselves.
And I said, what was the priest's name?
Father Malloy.
I said to him, Father, don't you think you should have someone come down here and clean this kitchen that's all full of cockroaches? He looked at me, he said, everybody has cockroaches. I said, oh no they don't, Father.
Yeah.
I've never had one, and neither did my mother ever have one.
Well, of course, in Arkansas, the climate is such that you don't have the cold winters to kill them off.
That's true, but you can still keep them out.
Yeah, but again, there are a lot.
You have to work at it.
You got to work a lot harder at it in that climate than you do in a cold weather climate. Did your father ever own a car?
Yes, he bought one new finally, a Pontiac. And
did he own a used one before that?
Hmm?
Did he own a used one before that?
No.
No. So
No.
When did he buy the Pontiac?
Well, it must have been like maybe when I was a junior in high school. Because they used to have dances at the Casey's used to have dances in the Jacobson building.
Mm-hmm.
And it was for weak kids, you know.
That was upstairs. They have a...
Yeah. And at that time there were 8 wee girls that had sort of a club, you know, how you get together. Well, starting about Tuesday, the dance was always on Friday. Starting about Tuesday, the girls would pull me aside, are you going to dance Friday? I don't know.
What did it depend on? Whether you could get a ride?
Dad would go around, pick up all these girls. He would come back. I think the dance lasted like till 10:30 or so. He would come back, pick us all up, and take us all home. So they couldn't go.
If you didn't go.
If I didn't go.
So that's why they're anxious to know if you were going.
That's right. Oh, he was so good about that.
Who were the other girls? The other 7 girls? How'd you all fit in the car? That'd be 9 people.
I don't know. Maybe all 8 of them didn't go, Mike. I don't know. Well, Peg Sutcliffe. Well, she didn't go because she was in school. She only went through her sophomore year at St. Mary's. And then she went down to the Villa de Chanel.
Went where?
The Villa de Chanel in, I think it was in Rock Island. Girls' school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget her mother. She, as far as we were concerned, Peg was wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
And her mother drove the car. And so after Peg got down there, didn't she ask we girls to go down and have lunch with us? And she picked us up and took us down and brought us home.
Big outing.
Yeah, she was a nice woman. Well, Peg was always a real nice girl. And who else? I don't know that there was anyone else that you would know. Girl by the name of Marion Ryan.
Whatever happened to them all?
Helen Dermody. I think they're all gone. But me. And the good Lord doesn't want me.
Not yet. No. Well, you know, he's just not quite ready.
Well, I reached 2,000, and I said after that I didn't care. No, life has many ups and downs, hills and valleys.
How many people, what kind of interest did people have in politics back in, the days when you were growing up?
Well, of course, they were all Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that I knew.
And why were they Democrats?
Well, the Democrats have always been the poorer party.
What do you mean they've been the poorer party?
Well, it's the poor people that have been Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
The rich people have been Republicans. That's the way they were divided.
Mm-hmm. But did they have is it because the Democrats advocated something that people perceived was good for them?
I don't know, Mike.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So was there much political discussion when people would get together?
Not that I remember.
Not really. Yeah.
No, in fact, we were taught at home, with your friends, you don't discuss religion or politics.
I always heard you weren't supposed to discuss sex, politics, or religion.
Sex never entered into it. Good heavens.
What was the view in those days regarding sex? I mean, obviously...
How would I know? Your father and I were probably two of the greenest ones that ever got together. Oh, dear.
It certainly wasn't quite as central to life as it seems to be now, right? Except...
Oh, no, life is entirely different now, Mike. I can remember, this will show you how dumb your mother was. I can remember being in high school and this one girl getting pregnant. I didn't know she was, but somebody told me that, and I looked at her and I said, well, she can't be pregnant, she is married.
And I imagine that was news that was passed along as something that was very shocking and scandalous.
Oh! Heavens.
Mm-hmm. Of course, that was even true when I was in high school. A girl that would get pregnant had immediately been put into a different classification than everybody else.
They didn't know as much in those days as they do today.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a different world.
I'll
And back to the apartment.
Huh. Her brother was going to buy the apartment.
Well, you know Thea, she's got
Yeah.
all the dough.
Well, Bob was going to buy the apartment and sell his house over here and move up there. Bob and Ori.